Hi there, and thanks so much for joining me for another tutorial. I'm Erin Eno, and today we're going to have fun painting this seashell on the seashore. If you do like this video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up. I really appreciate it. And also, if you want to see more beginner-friendly tutorials like this one, please be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. And don't forget to hit that notification bell so you know when I have new videos out. Now let's just jump in and get painting. Today I'm using my Baohong Academy cold press watercolor paper. It's 140 pound, 100% cotton. I have a piece roughly 10.5 by 7-ish, and I've taped it to a board all the way around because we're going to be using a fair amount of water for the background, and you don't want it to warp. I have my Royal Talons Van Gogh paints in my palette, a jar of water, and a paper towel, and I have 3 brushes I'm going to start with today. I have a Curry's store brand brush, size 12 round in their 2500 series, and a size 6 round in their 2400 series. I also have a Princeton Snap size 2 round. You will also need a pencil and an eraser because we're just going to do a quick sketch before we start to paint. So first I want to indicate where my seashell is going to go, and I want it to be around this area of the sheet, and I want it on a bit of an angle. Actually, just to help me along, I'm going to tilt it on an angle, and I'm just going to draw in just a circle for the outer edge for now. We'll put the little scallops in a minute. Okay, so it'll be just like that. Then we want to draw in the shape where it comes in and goes down to the center, or the bottom center. Okay, just like that. And then we don't really need to be worried about this because this is where it's going to be buried in the sand, and we'll just have a little kind of a sand line there. So I want to get rid of the extra lines I have here. Maybe it's not the best shape ever, but that'll do the job. And now that I know where the curve is going to be and where it's going to end over here, I'm just going to draw in that scalloped edge. I don't want to do too many of them because I don't want to have to put a lot of detail in the shell. Then I'm going to just draw in where I want my shoreline to go, which is going to be just part way up the shell here. And then coming down over here. Okay, and that's going to be our kind of beach line, sand line. So now I just want to erase all the extra little lines we have. This is where a kneaded eraser comes in handy because you can you can mold it to the shape. Once I take out these extra lines, I'm just going to lighten the whole thing. So to start, I'm going to do the sky first, and I'm going to wet my entire background first. And then when I get to the shell, I'm just going to wet around that scalloped edge that we have. Okay, so I just want to indicate a little bit of a hint of the ocean in the background. I'm going to use Prussian blue, not that much. Okay, and I just want to have it like soften out. So I'm just going to put some little streaks in like this. So you don't have to be really concerned about it. It's just going to blend out and get lighter. So it's just going to be a little indication of the ocean. And we want it to just bleed out and be soft towards the edges. And I'll just maybe put a little hint of it up here. Could be sky, could be ocean. And a little bit along here. We're going to put in this kind of misty land line back here. So I want the ocean to kind of come up to it. And you don't have to fuss too much. This is going to dry lighter, so I'm just putting a little bit more blue in here. And where you come into the seashell, it's just going to bleed in where we've put that water, where it's wet. Okay. If it creeps in a little bit, it's not the end of the world. You can always tap it up with your paper towel. Just like so. Maybe have a little bit more blue over here. But that's it, nothing too intense. That's going to be our land line. And I'm going to go in and get the slightest amount of sepia on my brush. Okay, and I don't want my brush to be too wet. And I'm going to go in with that sepia, and we're going to do this kind of land line that's in the background. Okay, just like that. Maybe a little more pigment. You can have it bleed right out there. Soften that up a bit. Just kind of play around a little bit. This isn't the the most detailed part of the painting. Want a little bit of heavier line here. Like that. And then maybe I will go in and get some Azo Yellow Medium. I didn't want that much. Just for the slightest hint of a sunset. Just put a little yellow up there with the touch of permanent red light, which is kind of orangish. Maybe just draw a little line of orange right there. And I'm going to dry off my brush and just kind of soften that edge a bit and go into my sepia again, a little heavier this time, more pigment than water. Okay, and that's going to blend out still, but that'll just be a little heavier land line. Maybe a little bit more of the permanent red light. And I just want to just touch that, have that soften up just a little bit more. I don't want to mix it around, but I just want to soften it just a titch. In fact, I'll go in with that Prussian blue again and just heavy that up right below that landmass. Okay, and that's all we're going to do for the background. So we can move on to the sand now. So what I want here is kind of like the shoreline can be lighter, and then the sand's just going to come up to it, but not meet the blue. So we don't need to worry about that pencil line because we can erase that later. So I am going to wet the entire background again. Just up to where we did the water though. I'm actually going to erase that bottom of the shell. I almost forgot that. And I just dipped my finger into my painting. So I didn't really want to do that. That's okay, it'll blend out. It doesn't look like any major damage. So I'm just coming up to that line where we want the shell to sit in the sand and going past it a little bit where I want the sand line to end. And for the sand, I am going to use raw umber and just a wash of it. And I think I'm gonna actually make it a little on the gray side, a little more gray. So I'm just gonna add in a bit of neutral tint. Just put some up there. And I'm just going to start first with a wash of this color and put it all down here. And bring it in to where that shell edge is. Okay, so we want a soft edge over here, but where it meets the shell, it's going to be a sharper edge, which makes sense. And because I want it to be buried in the sand, I'm going to do just a curved line like that. Maybe come up a little bit more. Just like that. Okay, now I'll continue on with the sand. And I'm just going to soften the edge of the sand. That's probably a little more paint than I want there. I'm just going to blot some of it up. I want to make sure I can erase that pencil line once it's dry. And I'm getting a bit of a weird edge here because that wasn't wet when we put that sand down. But there's going to be a little bit of a shadow there that we're going to heavy up with this sand color. So that's all okay. I'm just going to tap it in here. Okay, maybe have a little extra pigment at this edge. And once it's dry, we can go in and refine our shadow edge. Okay, so I just want to put a little bit of extra pigment in some spots just to give the sand some kind of life. And I am getting some blooms there, but that's okay. It's all good. That might have been a bit much. Okay, I think that's good for now. I don't want to have it start to do weird blooms on me. I'm actually going to kind of blend this out a little bit. Now we have to wait for it to dry. And now for the seashell, I just want a little bit of a wash. I'm actually going to spritz some water in there first so I'm not running back and forth to my water jar. And I'm going to try some yellow ochre, but I want it a little pinker than that. So I'm going to add in some rose. I didn't want it that pink. Oh well. And I'm going to put in some raw umber. I do want it to have a pink undertone, but maybe not that pink. Go back to the yellow ochre, see how this does. That's not bad. I think I want it a little redder. I'm going to add some oxide red because that's not as vivid as that quinacridone rose or the rose is, and I think that's probably going to do it. We're going to use it really watered down. I think that's good. So what I want to do first is I want to take some of this neutral tint. I'm just going to put it in this well over here and get a light wash of it. And I just want to draw, I want to paint. I'm actually going to add it to the raw umber here. So we're just trying to get like a neutral kind of shadow color. So I'm going to get most of it off my brush, and I just want to indicate where the little grooves are in the shell, just so we know that we have those in place as a guide. So I'm going to start with this one here. That's really heavy. That might be a little heavy. I'm just going to tap some of it up. And along this groove here. So this is just indicating where our grooves are, just so we don't get confused when we're putting the colors on the actual shell. So now what I want to do is just establish the very outer edge. So I'm going to take this kind of corally color that we've made. I want to add some more neutral tint to it. It just seems too vivid. And I'm going to switch to my number 2 brush because I don't want to put a lot of water on here. Okay, and I'm just going to put a stripe all along this outer edge. And I'm following those wavy edges, the scalloped edges. I guess that's what it's called. And I'm going to rinse and dry off my brush. I'm not going all the way across because I want this wet. And I'm just going to drag this down. Just blend it in. And you're still following that scalloped edge, okay? Just like that, and we'll continue this on. I don't think I wanted it to bleed into the other area like that, but oh well. I probably should be stopping now and blending, but I'm kind of impatient, so I'm just going to finish this whole edge. And it's not perfect, I know, but we just want it to look like a shell. It doesn't have to be hyper realistic. I'm going to blend this out like we did the other side. This edge got a little heavy. I think I waited too long to kind of blend this out, but that's okay. If it's not blending, we can just add more pigment and then blend that out. So there's always a fix. Actually, I think I will because it's looking a little harsh. So try to be more patient than I am and do fewer grooves at a time so it's still kind of wet. So to kind of make this match, I'm going to add a little bit more pigment to this edge. That's what you get for being impatient. So I'm going to rinse and dry off my brush and now kind of soften this new paint line up. Just like that. Then I'm going to take this color again and we're going to do another line just a little bit below that first one that we did. Just like that. I'll be more patient this time. It's not blending like I wanted it to. There we go. Because I want it kind of soft on both edges. So I'm just going to take my brush, run it along the top, just like that. Okay, and we'll continue on. This will start to come to life a little more when we heavy up the lines between the little grooves. It'll make them pop out a little more. So now we're going to do one last round of this. I'm going to water it down a little bit. Don't want it quite as heavy as that last round. And we're going to keep a more defined edge, upper edge on this, and we're going to then blend it out. Okay, so we're just going to do the up, down, up, I'm going to do this one right across. Like that, and now I'm going to re-wet the whole thing. And then I'm just going to blend this down. So I'm going to tilt my board, and I just want to blend it all out in that curve shape, but all the way to the bottom. Okay, so that top edge is going to be a little more defined than the other grooves, or than the other stripes, but it's going to come down all the way to the bottom of the shell. Like so. You know, I'm going to make these a little more curved. There we go. Now I'm going to dry this, and then we're going to add in some more shadows and make this shell pop a bit. Okay, so now that this is all dry, we're just going to go in and put some heavier shadows on it so this really kind of pops out. Actually, I think I'll use my number 6 brush because I want to mix that raw umber, a kind of sandy color that we were using, and I'm going to add in some neutral tint. Okay, so we've got that nice kind of warm gray, browny gray. Okay, and I'm going to take most of the water off my brush and just go back in and get some. And it's going to be more shaded on this side of the shell. So I'm going to start there first. And we want to have this be kind of translucent so that the colored stripes underneath show through. We don't want to cover those up. Okay. I'm going to water this down a little bit more. I could actually afford to go even darker on this side because that is the shaded side. So I think what I'll do is maybe finish up on this side first. So I'm just cleaning off my brush and just kind of softening one edge of that. I don't want everything to look like too harsh. Whoops, did not mean to do that. Now don't stress over this too much. We're not trying to make it look hyper realistic. We just want it to look like a shell. Okay, and I'm just blending out one side only. I've chosen to just do the right side to soften that edge up a bit. Okay, again, just one line all the way up. Then I'm going to clean off my brush, tap it off on my paper towel, and just soften this one edge. Now the shadows can start to get a little heavier and more pronounced on this side. So I'm going to go a little heavier, have it a little more pronounced on the left side, and then I will blend it out. Okay, so I'm just going to dry off my brush a bit and just soften this one edge. Just like that. And do the last few over here. And I think because this side is more in the shade, or more shaded, I'm probably going to do a little bit of a shadow over this whole left side, just to give it that much more depth. Okay, so before it dries, just want to blend it out. But like I say, these ones are going to be a little darker. So now I'm going to dry this, and we're just going to put some extra shadow on this left side and a little bit of shadow on the sand, and I'm going to speed it up with my heat tool. Okay, so that's good and dry, and I'm going to go back to that shadow color. And make it extra heavy on this left side. Just like that. And I will blend it out, but I want the shadow over this whole left side, okay, over everything. So I want this wash to be thin enough that the shadows underneath are going to layer under this, if that makes sense. Okay. Tap a little more on this side. And then for the sand, I just want to put a little bit of a shadow underneath the whole shell. So I just need to make a little bit more of that sand color. And I'm just going to put a shadow on this side. Okay, and I just want some shadow underneath this edge and maybe coming off from the shell a little bit on this side. Nothing too drastic, so I'm going to blend it out. And you can pick up your board just so this can kind of run and blend out a little softer. A little bit over here. I'm just going to blend this out to nothing. I don't want to reactivate the paint underneath, so I'm not scrubbing at it too much, but I'm just dragging that shadow out a bit. Okay, just so it's nice and soft. You can tap a little bit right near the shell. That's it. Oh, now one last thing. I want to see if I can remove that pencil line where I have the sand fading off. Hopefully it will lift up. Sometimes if there's not a lot of pigment on top, you can still get that pencil line off. Okay, so I wasn't able to completely erase that pencil line, but I'm not going to lose sleep over it. I'm just going to take the tape off, and we'll see what our painting looks like. So once the tape was taken off and that distracting green border was gone, I thought it could use a little beefing up in some areas. So here I am just adding a little more to that shadow at the base of the shell where the sand hits it. And again on that left side, if you do go back in, just make sure that you blend it out nicely with your brush. And I would much rather have to go back into a painting and beef up the shadow than to start off too dark right out of the gate, because you can't take paint off. And there you go. There is our seashell on the seashore. I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial and that you found it helpful. And I hope that you will give this a try. And if you do and you're on Instagram, please be sure to share and tag me. That's it for today, guys. Thanks so much for joining me, and I will see you next time.